quickly about me. So I manage Food Embassy, which is a small social enterprise. Our business is about activating regenerative localised food systems, and we do that through workshops, training and events. And one of the other fun things we love to do is collaborate. So we're here today with the Hills and Furrier Landscape Board. Jeff's been an amazing supporter here on the side next to me, and the Future Farmers SA and South Australian Rural Food Network have also co-hosted this event with me today. So lovely to have them in the room. And now what I'd like to do is just introduce our speakers. So we're going to start with Serenity. So Serenity is flying in this morning. So lovely to have Serenity in the room. She is the co-founder of the Open Food Network and director of both the Open Food Foundation and Open Food Network Australia. Her work focuses on sector and enterprise development, advocacy, research and project development, and implementation to expand regenerative agriculture in Australia. Her breadth of food system knowledge, connection and experience is amazing. And in her spare time, she runs an regenerative farm in Warrnambool with her partner. Here they're exploring and enacting a collaborative farm share model that has ecological restoration at its heart, and I know she's going to share some of that with you today. So I'm going to hand over to Serenity.
That intro. So yeah, I wear multiple hats. So at the Open Food Network, this is what we're about, supporting regenerative agriculture and the supply networks that get that food to people and have it paid for and supported. And so we do a lot of food systems work at Open Food Network. I also advise into Sustainable Table Fund, which is quite an exciting kind of new initiative of philanthropists and other kind of investors putting targeted money into regenerative agriculture and support systems in Australia. And yeah, as Liz mentioned, our farm, Packaging in Warrnambool, which I'll talk a bit about a bit later. So this whole sector of agroecological farming and the food systems that support it is doing amazing public good things for all of us in terms of health outcomes, resilient economies and jobs, and when the mainstream supply chains break down, you know, this is what we've got to eat. And all of these things that are often invisible that these farmers are doing for us all. And there is a huge and very strong argument for public investment and other investment to proactively support this sector, which unfortunately is not there at the moment. And there's huge barriers for agroecological farmers. We've put this report for the Victorian government recently. I can share it after this with everyone who's registered. It's going to be released publicly next year, where we looked at the barriers and enablers for new farmers. And today I'm sort of mostly going to focus on the land access issue, which is massive, but there is a whole lot of other support needs that the sector needs as well in terms of training and support. And often, if you want to be a regenerative farmer, you need to basically go and work with other farmers. There's not this training system that's out there, and the system from the mainstream sector is not purpose-built for the needs of this sector. So, so we went through and looked at different models for supporting new farmers on land. I don't like to say young farmers because lots of new farmers are not young. New farmers on land, which you can kind of go into more detail with the actual report. So there's stuff around leasing, there's stuff around share farming, setting up cooperatives. And this is the main one I'm going to kind of focus on today. It's like enabling kind of philanthropic or other investment into common land that can be used and shared by new farmers, which is kind of the cutting edge of how we're going to shift land and capital in a bigger way to support this whole sector, because you can't farm without land. So I'm just going to run through very quickly through a whole lot of a handful of examples. So this is the Harcourt Organic Farming Collective in Hepburn, and this model is basically to retiring farmers or orchardists who have said, well, we want this farm to remain in kind of organic production, and they, basically the model is they have a sublease with 3 different producers, the orchardist, then a market gardener and a micro dairy, and part of that lease arrangement is that they have, they're part of an organic marketing cooperative, so they market the food themselves. And the challenge around this has been there's no extra money in the system. Like these retiring organic farmers didn't have any extra money other than the capital in the land. So, you know, the access track means that consumers can't come and, you know, so they've got, there still needs, when there's this amazing shifting, and so there still needs to be all of this support to actually make these models work. But it's interesting thinking as ecologically the function of the different farmers and how they can kind of work together. This is Five Tails Farm, which Carrie knows more about than me, because she's visited it recently. So maybe Carrie's back there, and maybe if you want to learn more about this, ask her. So the interesting thing about this is Mikey Densham, and he was part of the market gardener at Mossy Willow Farm, and learned a lot about how land sharing can not work. When there's asymmetry of power, when the very rich landholder owned the land and they set up the whole business and brand, and then that didn't work out, and then he and his partner spent time travelling around the world looking at cooperative farming models, and they've come back to the peninsula in Victoria and have set this up with all of their kind of learning. So they're leasing part of another farm called Torello Farm, and that's also their market, so they can sell through wholesale through that farm, and they've got a lot of other exciting things going on. I'm mostly going to run through this quickly so people can like follow up afterwards, and we can talk more about it. Mamungi Basin Produce, this is a group in northeast Victoria of like 5 market gardeners that a couple of them are share of land, but then there's other land elsewhere, and they're joining forces in terms of marketing both boxes and wholesale and farmers market. So an example of collaborating to do the packing and marketing to kind of share the costs. This is an example from America, which is incredibly inspiring. So this came out of, so Greenhorns has existed in America for like over a decade, and that's an organisation that supports new farmers with a whole range of information and support. And this is the Agrarian Trust has emerged from that in the last, like quite recently, I think in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. And it's basically a way that you can pool investment to buy land across the country, so this is across the US, and there's a kind of advocacy and management of that investment centrally, but then it's set up in a subsidiary way where non-profits are set up to run those parcels of land, and they're set up in a way that's quite unique to respond to that particular kind of community. And they offer, they're kind of advocating for the sector to government as well. So that's a really cool model to you know, and a way that external investors can kind of put money in to support the sector. This one is in France, and this is just, it's the same sort of thing as the, it's pretty much exactly the same sort of thing as the Agrarian Trust, where there's just like a massive amount of, like over 200 farms and over 300 farmers that are supported by this national organisation that then owns this farmland. And it's tied in with the training and support as well. So you know, there's incubation processes for that to happen. Oh, the other thing about the Agrarian Trust in the US is that the farmers have a 99-year lease, so they've got this like permanency and know that they've got that security, and they're seeing themselves in terms of that long-term deep connection and stewardship with the land. But when they want to retire, they can sell that leasehold to somebody else, so they can, you know, take money as a way of entry and exit. This one is in Switzerland. This farm has been since it's a biodynamic farm since the late 70s, I think, and it's set up with associative economics, the theory of associative, which comes from Steiner basically. And the really interesting thing about this, so it's a farm and it's got a hotel business and a restaurant business. So they've got kind of tourism and the whole thing going on. It's a cooperative, so there's kind of autonomy from all the different kind of farming businesses. But then they have a non-profit that controls 51%. So it's like that has the public good and the core mission of the land that it kind of protects. But then you've still got this way of kind of distributed ownership. So this is my farm, Pukwudgie. So this is in northeast Victoria, in Warren Bay. It's 400 acres, and it's my family farm. And I, over many years in kind of succession, my mum, who was amazing, has helped us set this model up where we've basically transferred the land into a family-controlled land trust that has basically like a long-term lease, like an 80-year lease, with a non-profit that is running Pukwudgie for regenerative production and education around that. And what's been really interesting for me in that process is, like, there's no one model that's going to, suit. Everything has to be very local and context specific to kind of do there. And there's lots of ways you can put together the legal and governance stuff, and it's going to be different every place. But we went through a long process with my mum where we got to kind of her deeper drivers and principles that she wanted to establish in this succession process. And they were basically 4 things. One was that it stayed in proper food production. She didn't sort of want it to turn into a hokey, she wanted food grown for people. She wanted biodiversity to continue to increase. So she, as a farmer over 40 years, she was like at the start of land care and has put in an amazing kind of stewardship over that time, and she wanted to see that kind of built on. And so much of what's driven me to go into food systems and to be a farmer myself is that I could see that my father and her were stuck in the commodity system, so they had to drive the land harder than what they wanted to, even though they wanted to get these ecological outcomes. So I could see the need, and this is why I started the Open Food Network, because it's about building markets for regenerative agriculture, but then this deeper need to also shift actually the governance and our cultural relationship with land. So she had those things. She also wanted my brothers and I to be able to have a right of residency if we wanted to, and she wanted access for the generational family to have access to the land. And then so we put together this model. She wasn't quite ready to transfer the land into a non-profit. She needed her retirement taken care of, obviously. So we had to work out the business model so she was getting an income stream from it as well, which we're still making up as we go. But so what else should I say about that? And because we wanted to, I can see that to move to proper regenerative building ecological function food systems farmers need to be able to have that long-term relationship with the land and to see themselves, seeing myself in it, in my, kids in 100 years. But we need other people to be able to have that relationship, even if they're, this idea of kind of ownership of land. And that deeper connection, we have to think about how we put together governance models that enable that relationship building, not just this thing of I own land and I can sell it because of the kind of commodity-based system. So that's what we're trying to do. Also at Pukwudgie, so we've just set up the non-profit. It's only the land sort of transferred in the last couple of months, and we're just putting together the non-profit, but we've left it open to. The other thing that we did that I don't think has been done before is as part of the 80-year lease, the non-profit, who's the tenant, has to build ecological function and show that they're building ecological function, and in return, at the end of the 80 years, the land gets transferred. So there's this progressive, increased kind of equity in the land for doing the ecological function building, and the beneficiaries, my brothers and I, in the land trust that owns the land, or is holding the land in trust, are taking our beneficial interest in the form of ecological function. So that's a neat little thing that our lawyer came up with that I don't think has been done before. But we thought about setting up the non-profit as a cooperative, but we wanted to keep it quite, it's a registered charity, it's a non-profit. We wanted to keep it quite open because we don't know yet how to do this. So we want to keep open the option of having leases with, subleases with farmers, or for the non-profit to run farming enterprises itself. So my partner Kirsten and I run a sheep enterprise, and so we'll have a sublease with the non-profit. But yeah, we'll see if it comes. It's interesting, the first people that we've attracted are actually people we met through Nature Connection camps with our kids. So they're running a program for kids called Wild Hearts, which is a nature, I think it's the, I don't know of any other well, I haven't heard of any others, where it's kind of this deep nature connection program for kids on a regenerative farm. So that's actually the first other business other than the sheep that's happening. How much I must be. This is some resources that I just thrown together. So Young Farmers Connect for any kind of new farmers. They're a great organisation that has a lot of support resources. That's a document property farming that was put together by Greenhorns, I think, in the US, which is just really useful. Grounded is interesting. This is a new national advocacy body run by a guy called Carl Fitzgerald in Victoria that is about supporting the development of community land trusts. So community land trust is a model that has come mostly out of eco-villages and sustainable housing, where people have a 99-year lease with their houses on land that they don't own. And he's trying to work with governments to enable many more of these community land trusts to be set up. And he says that across the country, about a third of who he's working with projects have a food production component as well as the housing. But anyway, he's really good in terms of the legal and other stuff. And that basically that organisation was only set up a couple of weeks ago. And then the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance also has a program and support for farming on other people's land. So this is a lot of legal support, particularly where people are going into kind of lease arrangements or shared farming arrangements. It's a really good support network to kind of work out how other people have done that and work out what might suit people. I don't know where I am with time. Yeah, right about. So I just want to finish with saying, through all this, my kind of kind of the takeaway message is like horses for courses. There's going to be a whole lot of different ways that might work for the farmer and the landowner, and it has to come from this kind of deeper exploration of what you are trying to achieve, those parties are trying to achieve, and working out what those driving principles are, and then looking at what the model might be to suit that particular context. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful examples, and yes, heaps to take in. Put that over there. We've got time for one question. Is there anyone who's got a burning question? Otherwise, we can chat with her further and break. But anyone got a question? Yes, yeah.
I don't know if this is going to open a can of worms and whether we're going to cover some of this stuff later on. This is all very new to me. So I guess just a few comments. I guess a lot of farmers across the spectrum all have sort of off-farm income to support their farming enterprises, because I've heard people say farmers farm real estate effectively, and so it's when you retire or whatever that you actually see that benefit. And a lot of farmers don't actually pay themselves, an income as such. They've basically got very small income. And so, and I guess, any thoughts on that? I guess, and recognising that, at the moment, farmers don't get paid to manage sort of ecological assets, but there's some promising things on the horizon, I think. But I know it's a big can of worms, but just some thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's really important framing because this is like, so in Victoria, you know, before we put out the report, I think last year land prices increased 18% or something, and all the land where in the fertile places is it actually doesn't make sense to farm like from the return. Like this is a massive structural problem, and that same structural problem of like the industrialised food system externalises all this stuff, and we're like internalising it, and so the cost like of actually paying ourselves well and doing the ecological work and getting the food to people, it doesn't stack up. So it has to be subsidised in some way. So I advocate for, you know, government and public subsidy and try and get philanthropic investment in there. And the other way is getting, you know, consumer education, getting consumers to kind of pay for it. And the other way is potentially like, you know, ecosystem services and those sort of, you know, actually, but there has to, I'm working on another project as well that's trying to get government working out a model for government subsidy instead of going to food relief, you know, to go into this sector. But it's the massive, it's the issue, right? Because you get all these farmers doing this great stuff and then you can't make it, you know, fall over because it's too much. Yeah.
Well done, sorry, I think that's a big one. Okay, can we the slide, the back slide, the first one? I'll just get my team manager to do that while I'm introducing our next speakers. So next joining us is Tom Bradman from Nomad Farms. So Tom is a small award-winning family-owned and run farm in the Finniss Valley. They produce a range of pasteurised produce and botanically dyed fibre of the highest quality. Their production methods uniquely regenerate landscapes and is the principle of regeneration, ecologically, socially and economically, on which this business is based. So Tom will be speaking and then Kat will follow, and Kat was on Nomad Farms with formerly a Falcai farm, which is pasture-raised eggs. That was one previously. So I'll hand over to you guys to share your story.
Thanks, Liz. My name's Tom. I run Nomad Farms, which my wife and I founded in 2013. We're about half an hour down the road. We farm 850 acres down there. We're growing 650. I say own, but it's sort of old language, really, in a way. We think of ourselves as custodians of the land. And you know, that level of connection with land is really, really important to us. And you know, it's important. Those things are important when you bring other people on as well. They've got to share in that connection. We'll always be the custodians as long as we're there, but other people have to share in a level of ethos and ideas, otherwise it's not going to work. That's getting ahead of ourselves. So we run pasture-raised chicken and beef and some hogget, and more recently we also do a botanically dyed wool. My wife started doing, so that's all Australian grown. We don't actually grow the wool at the moment. Some friends do. They use regenerative farming methods up in Mount Torrens. We get it built in Victoria, and then my wife mainly predominantly. I help a tiny bit, but not much with that. She uses a whole lot of botanicals to dye the wool. That's great stuff. So that's our newest enterprise. We've been going since 2013. I suppose we started really, really small, especially on the pasture-raised poultry, which is probably our main product, which we're known for the most. We started out with, I think 70 chickens or something was our first batch in about 2015, I think it was. And now we do about 25,000 birds a year we run through, so it's about 500 birds a week, give or take. We also do beef. Some of that goes back through the commodity market, and some, a fair bit of it now goes through direct to restaurants and butchers and through farmers markets, Wollongong Farmers Market and Adelaide Farmers Market, which all of our chicken goes through those channels. We do not have a commodity overflow market in chicken at all. It's only the market we create, and we've worked hard to create a market for that. We've been involved a bit in land sharing arrangements, really through our relationship with Kat and her partner Luke. Luke's worked for us full time since about 2018, I think, and before that, Kat and Luke started sharing some land with us, sharing some of our land, and running their egg birds on there. That's now ceased for all sorts of reasons. Kat talk about, she could talk about that arrangement. We found the arrangement to be great. Let me just say that I'm not saying that there isn't an access to land issue, but I can only talk from my experience. We've been contacted once to ask about land sharing, and we didn't. We get contacted a little bit about other things, about who coming to work for us or do things. We often pursue it. So I'm not saying there aren't people out there looking for land, I'm sure there are, but we're pretty out there. We've got a website, we're on Instagram, we're sort of crying from a hill a bit, and no one's contacted us about looking for land. I'm not saying I want a flood of other things, but it's something that we've done, we're interested in, and I know a lot of punters who own land who are interested in it as well. So I think there are barriers. I don't think they're the same barriers that are often talked about as barriers. I think some of the barriers are things around economics, financial literacy, business plans, reality, social burnout, and scale.
You're rubbing my talk. We can burn out economically really quickly, and it's just shooting star disappearing. See you later. Ecological ruin takes a while, but it's generally doesn't happen in this space. Personal, social sustainability or lack thereof, and personal burnout. It's a slow burn. Once it happens, you can't go back. That's my experience. And this space is just littered with carcasses of personal. I almost don't know of many small businesses that have existed for long enough to say that hasn't happened to them in a way. The way we've managed it is we've tried to scale up, not ridiculously, because my favourite quote ever, Warren Buffett, you can't make a baby in a month, I get 9 women pregnant. There's certain things you just can't go faster than a sort of a natural limit, and we've tried to respect that by not trying to grow absurdly quickly, but we've been conscious to start small and scale fast and get to a point where we can employ people and we can have a life. And they can have a life, everyone can take a week off when they need it, because without that, forget about it. And no business will be sustainable with just a couple of people working 7 days a week. It will seem fun for the first year, and in the second year, you'll start to hate it, and in the third year or fourth year, you'll burn out. And it's too common a story. So they're looking at things realistically, accepting the fact that you will need a fair bit of capital, even if, regardless of land, someone can give you land for free. Access to land can come cheaply or even for free. You still need quite a lot of capital to set up a business. It is a business you're setting up. You cannot just bootstrap it from nothing. People need to be realistic about that. If you don't have that capital, go and work for someone else and generate it for a while, or find another model. Because if you want to start your own business, you will need capital. You need to be very financially literate, and if you want to get to a stage fairly quickly of employing other people and having that social sustainability of being able to go away for a weekend or do what you need to do to live a normal life, then also be realistic about the fact that you are going to be able to spend less time doing the things that you really love about farming, and you'll be spending more time managing people and looking at spreadsheets, doing the stuff that we don't love to do, but it is really, really essential. I'm very positive about the whole space, and I think there's huge, huge potential. I don't think land prices are as much of a barrier as they're cracked out to be, because the amount of stuff that an acre of land can produce is beyond any of our wildest dreams. It's almost infinite, and all we need to do is, and I've said this to the government will come and interview us about stuff, and they've talked about land prices being this big problem. Create enough stuff coming off that farm that makes the land price obsolete. Like if we produce chickens on our place plus the beef,
and we could then stack half a dozen more enterprises on that same bit of land, even at the crazy prices now, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 an acre, would become irrelevant if you stack enough enterprises on that land. You just need to get the people involved and the energy and get the ball rolling. That's pretty aspirational. I know there's a lot of practicalities in it. I'm only too well aware of those practicalities, but I do think that there's a hugely positive story with, with no limit, but we need to be realistic. We need to be realistic. I hope to have more relationships like we still have a strong relationship with Kat. Luke still works there full time. Kat's collaborating with my wife on the wool business. They just ran some natural dyeing workshops on the farm. Amazing. But I hope to have more relationships with other people and be able to share land and do more, because I can only do so much, and I only want to do so much. And there's so much more that we'll be getting done on that farm. I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to take questions, and then we can talk in groups. Yes?
Was your property inherited or did you buy it?
We bought it. Bought it 10 years ago. I was previously a lawyer. I worked for the federal government in sustainable policy work in Canberra. I've done well in the share market. I'm not going to lie about what's happened. I managed to put together capital to buy a farm. I was in a lucky position to do that, and that's enabled me to grow it and pump enough capital to get it to where it is now. But we live off the farm. That's how we go.
So, hi everyone, I'm Kat Snodwell, as already been discussed. So, me and my partner Luke have a pasture-raised eggs business on Nomad Farms. We all know what pasture-raised eggs is. Chickens living in a little trailer that move around the farm. It was a great arrangement. Like, as far as these sort of arrangements go, we couldn't have picked better people to work with than Tom and me. They were welcoming, they were just happy for us to give it a go, gave us advice, everything we could have hoped. That, we've tried kind of similar things in the past that just crashed and burned really fast. So getting a good fit is just so key. So our chickens moved around the farm. We kind of kept track of the area that we used, produced beautiful eggs, spread out manure all over the pastures. We ended up building a cool room and egg packing room and egg cleaning machine set up where we kind of cleaned and packed all the eggs on the farm. So everything just kind of happened there. It was great. But kind of 5 years down the track, profit was still non-existent. And we had to call it, basically. So we put a lot of work in right from the start. We thought that we were prepared. We both kind of almost created our own regenerative ag, training. We've actually farms, tried out different sorts of things. We had a business plan, and I guess we just kind of, I'm here for this word, the reality of it. Yeah. We just, you kind of look back afterwards and you go, oh, well, that bit was never going to work, that bit was never going to work, that bit was never going to work. And a key thing for us is that there is such a tiny amount of profit in eggs. It's like almost non-existent. You've got to be real big to make it work. So there's lots of chat about, basically our model is held up as by Joel Sullivan and other people. It's like, you can farm, but investment profit. So we probably, I would say we probably should have got more financial advice to start with. We thought that we'd done that, but maybe we just didn't ask the right people. I don't think we ever showed our business plan to Tom, and he probably got a big red pen on it. And something else that I think would have been really helpful would have been speaking to people who were doing eggs in a large scale way. Not that we ever wanted to get there. We saw ourselves as being small scale pasture-raised farmers, but we would have instantly picked up some realities from speaking to someone that has 20,000 hens in the shed. but instead we just spoke to small people who were doing small things. And I don't think any of them told us the truth. To be quite frank. Like, who's going to want to say, actually, this is really shit, I'm having a terrible time, and it's not working out for us? Like, when you're in it and you're throwing everything into it, it's so hard to say that. So I'm sorry, I don't want to get too negative, but like this is my experience, and it didn't work out for us. It's part of our life, and it's great. We've part of our story, but from a purely financial perspective, it wasn't great. And I think that if we'd heard stories like this, we would have approached things differently right from the start. Anyhow, so every time we got to a scale that like my beloved spreadsheets told me things would work out as, there was additional costs, there was additional realities, and then I'd look at it and go, okay, it should be working here, but actually we've got to double in size for it to work. And we get to there and we're like, oh shit, we've still got to double in size. So eventually we just kind of got to the point where we said, well, we've got to put so much more capital investment into this. We've already like thrown 5 years in, and we need more money. Where are we going to get it from? Who's going to lend to us? No one. So that was the point where we decided that we'd move on. So I had this all written out nicely. I'm just going to say this around my little chat. We mostly sold to restaurants and small grocers and wholesale prices. We also had sold at the local farmers market. We've always intended to get more of the retail dollar, which would have helped us. But when you're only selling eggs, it also makes it really difficult because, like, you can sell at the farmers market, but once you've maxed out that market, like, you could home deliver eggs, but if there's no profit in eggs, how are you going to manage to home deliver two cartons to a few people? So kind of our long-term plan was to do eggs and then add sheep to that, but we can't really get there. We did kind of work with a few other businesses to try to like collaborate around sales. We talked about it with and smaller bakery, that didn't really work out. Village Greens were great. Village Greens used to sell our eggs for us, and they gave us a really good price because they were just happy to help out other producers. But really, those options were few and far between, and mostly to get to like the scale that we needed to be, most of our eggs had to go at wholesale prices. When we kind of got to the point where we're like, oh, we've got to, so we closed at around 2,000 hens, and we figured we needed to get to 4,000. We were like, oh, where are these eggs going to go? Like, at even lower and lower prices, and the market's getting crowded. We weren't even sure if we could sell eggs, we needed to continue. So we both Rick and I both realised that, like, in the end, that running our own business didn't really suit our personalities either. I get nervous really well, which was not ideal. And also, marketing is not my skill in life, which is unfortunate. So now we both work out small businesses like Tom was saying, for Nomad, and I do it for Nomad and work for Naringa, and we're kind of using our skills that we've developed over the years to help support other small businesses, which I think for us definitely works, and indeed I think kind of smaller, stronger groups of people working together to make a business work is most of the time going to be a better model than like a couple slogging it, where you've got two of you kind of throwing everything in for one goal. Where's their time for family? Just threw that out the window for quite a few years, and just couldn't quite figure it out. So that was even more negative than what I intended to.
Great reality, and I'm so grateful for Kat for sharing her story. Such richness in that learning, and I'm really, really grateful for Kat to be here to share that, because I think that's, and I'm so thrilled that she said yes to me. So oh, she could have. But has anyone got a question for Kat?
I do.
Yes.
I'm half Dutch and Australian, and the football was on, so coherence might not be a thing other than up the time. My question is, with some of the people that I'm hanging around with, say the Moonshots one, what they were, because they were getting real high value, low footprint stuff like maybe saffron, where you go into like vertical farming. And there's a bunch of others that use a lot of like high tech, and what I'm seeing is a lot of sort of eggs or whatever that, like you were saying, the market's quite crowded. Where's the scope for doing something a bit different? Something a bit sort of, like ag futures or whatever, where you're anticipating where the market might go, and if you're in that space and you occupy it and it's all great and you're using tech, does that make it easier? Is that something you considered, or?
Listen, people have suggested it to us quite a lot. Like, agri-tech stuff requires a lot of investment. We don't have money. And also we just didn't see ourselves as being people that would try to get investment from other people. That just wasn't us. And then your other point on saffron, sure, that's massively higher value, but that also means there's quite a small market for it. So I think it kind of it balances out. And I'm not saying that because we didn't make eggs work, other people can't. They definitely do, and often it turns out by kind of collaborating together. But yeah, I think just right from the very, very start, getting that model sorted out, finding out could this possibly work? Probably not. Maybe it would. I think if we'd done saffron, we probably wouldn't have worked for us either, because we just if we approached it in the same way we did this. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I guess. I've just seen so many different things on, say, like YouTube or whatever, where you said, or Landline, we see people making really good farms out of, say, like even chip containers.
Yeah.
And up from there. I'm just wondering why. Oh, and the American ones, it's like, you see these guys and they're like, oh my God, they did your chooks and a whole bunch of other stuff, and they just seem to make it work so effortlessly. And I'm wondering what's the difference.
Yeah, it's nice fun. Yeah, right.
It might be a lot of marketing and not
Yeah,
so much reality.
and like I was saying before about people don't want to tell you the realities of the shit that's going on.
Yeah.
You're not going to put yourself out on YouTube and say, actually, we're not making any money, our relationship's falling apart.
It might be the YouTube that I get the money from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One more. Yeah.
Take the pain of that last experience away when you do growing again for yourselves?
Not for ourselves, no, I don't think so. I think my skills are much more suited to working for someone else. I find that weight of kind of being the visionary and knowing where to head it's not for me. But I'm great at kind of doing the day-to-day stuff. So
You seem like a young, so don't count yourself out.
Well, who knows where the future will lead, but it's also learning to know yourself and figure out what suits you as well, and not going, right, on the farm, this is what people are doing, I guess I just got to do that, but just figuring out where I fit in the system as well. Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you, Kat. I think that makes me reflect back to Serenity's point too about that really deep why you're doing what you're doing, and getting very clear about that and your strengths so they can see other things and what your skills are. Okay, our final case study today, lovely Tori, is Tori Arden, and she's the creator of Magic Harvest, which is an urban community food growing and cooking program, and part of the collaborative Magic Harvest and Sweet piloting that we're doing. And as part of that program, Tori is also called Magic Little Builds, making the most of homegrown produce with low meat, the One Magic Square book. Tori's interests and work revolve around connection to our food sources while treading lightly on the earth. Growing our own food, preserving, supporting farmers and regenerative farming, which is a new thing now with farming. But she's currently really obsessed as well with training people with the body. But I will hand over to Tori now to talk more about it.
Hi, I'm Tori. I was thinking, can I just talk about dog training? Because it's absolutely my obsession. It is, but I found a way to sweep it in there, so I'll get it. So I'm talking about the collaborative part, a farm that we currently own. David and myself and our daughter Mary have gone into partnership with another couple with a farm just near here on Parramatta Garden Land, which is Kaipo, so it's about 10 minutes up the road. We've only owned that property with joint custodianship, which we definitely feel is the right term for it. It's amazing, beautiful country, and we feel like, thank you to everyone who's ever walked this land and looked after it, because, and we hope to do a better job with it as well. It hasn't been looked after all that well in the just recent history. So it's been only about a year and a half that we've had this joint farm, but I'll explain how it works. So our model really has been, we're existing farmers who have wanted to bring in new farmers with us, and the way we've done that is to directly finance them. So that's a slightly different model. We didn't want to be the landlord, so we said, how can we bring someone in who's a new farmer and not be the landowner with a new farm? So we did that by directly giving them a personal loan, and so we've brought in tenants in common is the model we're using. We looked at all different models, so we have joint ownership, and we've just financed that ownership, and then also with our stock ownership, we've also financed another couple to own stock. So that's sort of the different way we're doing the model. As a little bit of background, so I've been farming for over 30 years in Wollonga on a mixed farm, so about 8 acres, but it's, we've done everything crazy and done lots of collaboration there. So it's a lot of vines, but we also have fruit and nut trees, and we've done all sorts of different things. Run a restaurant, farm gate, we did have an olive grove, so we did adopt an olive tree to bring people in to press their own oil. We do communal winemaking, communal fruit picking and preserving. We also do community cow, so families come in milk. That's not legal, so we wouldn't do that. If it was, we would. Anyway, so we do lots of strange things like that. And we've been self-sufficient in everything over the years, from honey, meat, dairy, wine, fruit, veg, even our crops. For a while we were growing our own grains. So nuts, incredibly nuts, and the only way it worked was by bringing other people in. And so we've done that all the time. But we've never done something as big as this that I'm about to talk about with the Kaiko company, because how it came about was on our farm. We started. I read Charles Mason's book, Call of the Red Warbler, and that's how we've been doing biological farming for nearly 30 years. And we were always trying to learn more and get deeper into it, but there was this missing link, and it was really reading that book that was pivotal for me, because it's like, we really don't understand our soil, and we haven't really been doing the regenerative farming, and I just learned that term. And so we brought in stock about 5 years ago and started to work with that, and the difference we saw in land management and the pasture improvement, it was completely convinced straight away, but we didn't have the scale of animals to do the kind of farming we wanted to do. So we then said we need a sister farm to be able to, because I don't know, a large part of our land in Wollonga is vineyard, and you can only really run stock for 4 months of the year because they eat shoots, so it doesn't work. So you have this beautiful land management plan, and then it falls over. So with a sister property that was close by, and we also looked at higher rainfall would be better, so we bought in higher rainfall land. So we've got 130 acres here. So the two together sort of has a relationship. But when we were, how it ended up as a partnership, we always thought collaboration would be great on a really deeper level, and with one of our milking families over the back of the cow, a young couple talking about what they would like in the farm, and saying that they were saying the prices were through the roof to be able to go in to buy land that's a viable working farm. I think it's really quite difficult to get that kind of capital up. And so we said, let's buy one together, and that's how that came about. And then we've got all different sorts of ways we looked at structuring it. And now what we do is we have what we call the enterprise, which is ownership of the land, it's the infrastructure, and it's the the revegetation. So that all comes under enterprise. And then we have under that projects, and project management is separate. So their primary interest is in forestry, the couple, and our primary interest was in regenerative farming. We particularly want to do meat and wool, and specifically value adding with the meat. But anyway, that's that business is our business is separate. So we've got our projects are quite separate, even though we have the land together. And so we've then brought another couple in to do the regenerative farming with us, and they they didn't have the capital to buy in, and so again we did the same system where we finance them directly, and so that they can come in with no capital and still have bear equals in this business arrangement. We've agreed that they don't have to pay anything pretty much until there's profit. Then they will have interest from the money we loan them will be taken out of that, and then they'll get split the profit. So they can come in without capital. It's just because we've been talking about this all the time, saying how can you do that? The only way is to pay for it. The other point I was going to make. Lots of things came up when I was. I know, but one really big thing I think is that for me it's all about relationships, and no matter what, you can sort of look at these models and go, that's an interesting model, but the model doesn't work unless it comes down to a personal relationship. So it's going to be about, we care about the same things. So the couples that have come in with us, it's absolutely philosophically driven. We all have, we want connection to country, we want to connect with the traditional owners of this land, we want to restore the waterways, we want to regenerate the soil. The revegetation project is huge for us, so if there wasn't that common vision, then everything else wouldn't work. But my big tip is put everything in writing, because we've done, over that 30 years, we've done heaps of kind of collaborative things where it was just a handshake and it could fall over really, really quickly because I thought you thought, you said this. So now we just put everything in writing and it's great. And so even though I was saying put everything in writing, we've got a formal contract agreement written up by both parties and the connections now that we have. Everything you put in writing won't be the thing that you end up disagreeing over. But at least you'll have covered whatever you can, and it makes it so much clearer if you've got nothing to handshake. And also checking in with each other regularly would be my other great tip. So we have a monthly meeting, but also to, so we're working together all the time, but so you're not just chatting while you're working, you actually sit down and let everything out and check in with each other. It's really important. So you don't realise how quickly things can get wobbly. I think that was another point I was going to make, was that you have to adapt. So you can say, so we put everything in writing, we agree on everything, we've got this vision, but the gritty reality of farming, and there's animals' lives and nature and everything's going wrong, is that you have to adapt to exactly what's in front of you. So it's a reality check every day. So being adaptable and celebrating together. We're actually really good at that, and we know how to celebrate the land, celebrate these lives, and we make that really formally structured that in so you don't forget. Because you can get, things can go wrong in so many different ways, and I guess that's the hard thing about a partnership, is you've just added in another wobbly element, because you've got market forces, you've got nature, that's farming, it's out of your control. So why would you want to do this, as Kat said? It's really out of your control in all those aspects. You can have your business plan, you can have your spreadsheet, doesn't matter. And all those things are out of your control. And then you add in a relationship, which is largely out of your control. So everything's risky, high risk situation, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. I would not want to do farming any other way. I think that the more we can collaborate, work together, and it might not give you as much profit as the existing farmer, definitely isn't a profit decision we might make, but the energy and the joy that it would bring definitely outweighs that completely. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Troy.
Does anyone have any questions for Tori?
I'm really curious when you say new finance.
Yeah.
I don't know what that really means.
Oh, okay, so loan money. So say if you wanted to come in to partner with us but you didn't have any money, so we loan you the money.
And just curious, is your interest rate parallel to banks or less?
Better, but it's to do with the people in the relationship. Yeah, it's not like we're offering that to anyone else. Yeah, it's just about the relationships at the time. Yeah, and what we're able to loan money and pass on. So because it's almost impossible to get a loan if you don't have other assets. So we're really acting as a broker in a way. We're loaning and passing on
Yeah.
So Tori, you basically do vendor finance and share. So you basically just vendor finance.
Yeah. It's all good, yeah. It's a lot of trust involved. It's all good.
And you say you linked the repayments to profit, like is it like a revenue based loan, like is
With the sheet, what we've done is to say, because can't afford to pay off a loan, because you would have got a loan money, can't afford a loan anyway, is that until there's actually profit.
yes, it doesn't kick in to pay.
Yes, so you don't have to pay a lot of money.
Yes, yeah.
So,
Okay, very cool, very cool. Great to have such a diversity. It's lovely to hear all this different and what's just right here in our back doorstep. Just before we take a break, is there anyone who's been mulling over anything else for the other speakers that have spoken? Any other questions? Because what we might, yes.
I was just wondering, I might come up later on, maybe
But
we'll talk about it, so everybody here does direct marketing to, I think, to a certain extent, and so at the other end of production, where you as stewards of your land are doing the best you can to produce, top quality food, the customers are in turn demanding that more and more of their food, but also they want a cheaper, they don't want to pay for it. So I'm just wondering if within this new models of farming and trading models and ways of getting access to actually producing food, that the other end, new models of marketing food so that there's less demand on your time, making deliveries, packing, and whether you're, like with Kat, I used to listen to you, I thought you marketed your eggs brilliantly, the way you described, why they were high quality, and they were high quality, but there was a real disconnect with people valuing that, and that went all the way to chefs to really value it, and they could be your most powerful spokespeople really, but they just still weren't valuing it. So value is my question, like how can you bring value into marketing so that you do have a more profitable business on a smaller scale?
Yes. Anyone want to add to that? Yeah.
I'd say two things come to my mind, like a properly informed market. I mean, this is obvious things that, the work that Liz does with food industry and that type of stuff, we try and do a few little bits and pieces, but it's something that I'd like to do, try and find ways of doing more of is, people come and ask about chickens at free range. We never use the term free range because probably reasons everyone knows. I asked them a few questions. Within 2 or 3 questions, polite questions, I'm not drilling them much, it becomes really obvious they don't understand what they mean by free range in the least. And these are people who are shopping at the farmers market, who are making the effort to go and wanting to buy them. I think it's no wonder people just go, you know what, I'm just going to can it all and go vegan because I care about doing the right thing, and that seems like an obvious choice. And that is not me having a go at vegans. I think they're wonderful people because they are making a choice based on some ethics. But I mean, it's not the choice I'd make. But my point is, there's a lot of people out there wanting to do these things, and they just don't have the information to make the informed choices that they want to make. So that's the first thing I'd say is we need to find ways of actually giving people the information that they're craving and developing that connection with the lands that's producing it and the methods. And the second thing is handheld mass spectrometers. They're almost at commercialisation in the US. Pretty soon people are going to be able to go, they're just working on all the calibrations. They just go and point without touching it, point at a carrot or a chicken or whatever, and it'll give you full nutritional analysis of everything. If that becomes a thing, and I don't think it'll necessarily become a thing for other than the very keenest shoppers. I think it's for wholesale buyers, or all of a sudden.
Be on a cord at the shop by the
Exactly. So
Can you imagine the YouTube experience of that?
if people are actually going to start paying on those metrics instead of appearance and size, that's potentially a game changer because people realise that cheap food isn't worth what it is, what it costs, and expensive food is actually cheap at times.
Just on that, is that something that's in the pipeline, not necessarily someone going to the shop and scanning it, but say getting being more accessible for a small producer to be able to advertise that they're
testing in, they can go, you have test in field. I mean, you can buy them now in the early stages. People, producers will be able to go and say, well, how's that going? Test it. Not looking great. Send a SAP analysis off to Netherlands.
Yeah.
They'll tell you what, address that micronutrient deficiencies, whatever it needs for the. Anyway, I won't start all that crap. But yeah.
I actually have a small follow-up, if I may, talking about that value-adding piece. Oh goodness me, the World Cup thing's sticking in here. So I went to the carbon pilot farming thing at Golden Winery the other day, and they had lots of different people from, some PhD professor through to Meat Livestock Association, and they were talking about the carbon aspect where you're doing sustainable stuff. And what they were saying was already farmers that say grow sheep, if they can market the fact that they're doing it sustainably, so for example the food impact, soil profile, etc., they have already able to demand high prices, right? So there's this value investment. Has anyone got any experience with that? Does that come true? Is that something that's worth considering? Is it right?
Like putting organic certified on your vegetables,
Well, that's
actually being certified and charging more for it.
that was the slightly missing piece. The Meat and Livestock were saying already farmers are able to show somehow. So what you do is, for example, you don't sell any ACCUs, carbon units, or possibly these new biodiversity certificates. You don't sell them. By keeping them, you've got something that's tangible, viable. You can point to it and say, look, there it is. We've got some, but you keep it to yourself. So then it says that your farm and your brand becomes inherently more valuable because it incorporates those things. And I was just wondering.
My concern about all of that, you increase the value of the product by having all that. You're still going to get that consumer to make that damn choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, running the farmers market, and you get the niche people come in, you might tip into the periphery of that. But that getting out of the niche people into the periphery is such hard work.
That's why I was asking.
Because there's so many blocks in the consumer mind, and there's also many issues around food patterning in terms of how they eat, their palates, their consumer habits. These are driven for many, many eons. And whilst I really respect what you're saying, let people know what this really means, it's a bloody brick wall. It's really, really knowing the profile and of the non-consumer of our food. That's what I reckon.
It's complex. It's really complex. I love this work and I'm so passionate about it, but it's certainly complex. I don't think we have all the answers either. So, did you just want to add anything to that?
Just very briefly, the mainstream system has this huge amount of marketing, facilities that go to create the NLA that's doing this huge industry marketing, and the regenerative sector doesn't have anything. Everyone's doing it on their own. So, that is a niche. There's this industry marketing, collaborative marketing, and education stuff. Just on the carbon credits and stuff, from a sustainable perspective, we're just watching that space because it's so complex. There's a lot of different players that are doing natural capital accounting for farms and all this sort of stuff, and then how that can be used to sell the credits or marketing thing. And it's just so complex, and so right now I'm just watching it. Yeah. The other thing about when you actually sell carbon credits, you're not affecting the net thing. You can. Yeah, some people get their farm, this is how much carbon I'm sequestering just to be able to market them. Some people are trying to sell them. My complex doesn't work in that way.
Yeah, so you might have what you're sequestering per day per month per planet.
Yeah.
We've got to pay for that service. So
Yeah.
come out and measure it.
Exactly. So you want to know what you're going to use that information for, and funding proposal something to get funded, and heading towards a model where there's an actual trainer who can work in partnership with farms to develop, to deliver very, very practical on the context. But I kind of cautioned against creating sort of a bigger than better thing that is not achievable and setting up something experimental to start with. So that was one. And please, there was the discussion of the sort of emerging regen groups that are sort of supported under the landscape strategy, writing as a quite like community practice information sharing between farmers. So making those, that's an opportunity for people to kind of join those, and they might be sites for running sort of individual community practices and doing the information sharing stuff through those. And someone said, Emma, after this group said, oh, we didn't get to actually talk about the land sharing. Like, there's a lot of thirst for kind of community practice and information around the land sharing kind of options. So that may be one of the through those region groups to have that discussion. Yeah.
I think that's right. Is the region group, like that network is starting. I say, I can contact people. People aren't going to just ring me and say, hey, can I use your backpack? And you've kind of got to, like, Kat and Luke and Barry and I kind of joke about how we dated for a little while before we either not. And you've got to get to know people. Those sort of networks and where those connections are going to happen. I know people who are part of the groups who are, who have way more grey hair than me and who own farms and don't have the energy to do the things that I see happen on them. And there's also, young people coming along with those groups. So that's a great way, not to people there, not speed dating, but then, those connections can come along with those networks. And it also provides a support group, which is really, really important. Because I know what it's like when you're taking a plunge into something you haven't done before, and it can be pretty lonely and challenging and all sorts of things that, you need to make a phone call with neighbours at 3 and eat for 2 weeks because of the way we So, yeah, those networks should support.
And then we talked about something around something about making the existing farms more visible, and this is for like 2 audiences. One is new farmers to kind of learn from existing ones, but the other one that was really quite strong was about the consumer audience and how to start this collective marketing. So some sort of project around that visibility, storytelling and stuff. And there was sort of a problem posed, another need is to be able to put this in government speak, translators who kind of work with the government and to actually have some strategic things that they can argue to get money in this space, and we didn't come up with a solution for that, but it is another area of need. Like, what do these key people inside the system need to be able to get more resources for the region centre? So I think that's all, apart from we did spend quite a lot of time talking about the individual need of people to deeply connect with their land and to work out what their passion is and what drives them and those higher goals, and spend time, don't rush that before rushing into things. So that's my note.
Thank you.
Was there anything that I missed that?
The only other thing we had in our group that came up through some of this stuff is my training too was around business models and help with spreadsheets and actually reality of the front end and what, that really nuts and bolts stuff. And that we think can possibly happen across some of this year. We can actually think about workshops or thinking with the Landscape Board, how can we do some really practical sharing and support of each other around that financial stuff that can spoke beautifully too. But otherwise, I think we had beautiful synergy, really, across the two, which is really great, given the short amount of time and how hard we worked this morning. There was one other thing we were talking about there with the government, and is there anything we missed that anyone feels like? Yeah, so the brand stuff, so visibility, and that was part of the visibility stuff we talked a little bit was about branding as well, and needing someone to perhaps collectively run and do that. We talked about Furio for possibly being
Yeah, I guess on top of the government language one, is just about linkages to existing strategy and or contributing to development strategy, I guess.
Yeah.
There are opportunities for that to just collaborate.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Okay. I think I'm going to try and wrap it up really. Thank you so much all of you for being here. There are some really concise actions that we're going to be taking away with us today. So what will happen is we will gather the information that you've all shared with us and we're very grateful for and use that to leverage this issue and these ongoing work to keep actually action in this space. Having said that, what we will do now coming forward, this is our second workshop in this series around regenerative food. We are hoping to host one in February, in early February in Alexandrina, and that will hopefully at this stage have a theme around resourcing. So really looking at how do we get access to funding, how do we support people with some of that business planning stuff, spreadsheet, all those sorts of practical stuff. So stay tuned, we've all got your names now and you will be part of this network. I'll keep you posted on that. So I'm hoping the Sustainable Table can join us for that one. I want to say a huge thank you to my guest speakers today. Serenity for being here, she's had a very early start and she's been amazing to bring her wealth of knowledge to this field and it's been fabulous to have her here. Tom and Kat sharing their story, thank you. And Tori as well, sharing her story. So great to have some really local examples. Please use this opportunity for building this key part of all this work, this relationship stuff for the rest of today. There's a little bit of a break now and then Matthew is speaking at 2 and there's a few other speakers I think on over the next hour as well. So thank you once again for being here. There is more food too. I'm not taking all of that home, so please help yourself to some food. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.